Okay, okay, okay. Okay, this class is now being recorded again. Thank you all for your wonderful comments. So yeah, moving on from the steam. So we have the hot baths, oh, the cold baths and the flower essences. So we got to go here now before we start getting into the really much more like, I guess, I guess just newer. I love all the herbal medicines. Like the tinctures, the salves are so great when we need to like hold on to that plant medicine for longer, when we don't have fresh herbs, when we're in the winter time, all sorts of situations. But last for our kind of whole plant series, I guess, working with the whole plant medicine making is going to be our cold baths. So what these are energetic baths, okay? So same as a flower essence, a cold plant bath is a flower essence that we bathe in. and and in your follow-up lesson for, I believe it was our first herbal class in this series, I think class 5, you got a PDF from Ekaterina Rodriguez, a like long distance guest teacher. She's a flower essence practitioner, and she practices in the Bach tradition. So the Bach tradition of flower essence making is going to be what you see when you see like Rescue Remedy in the store. You see flower essences sold in the store. Rescue Remedy is like a flower essence blend that's become very mainstream. You have people who are totally like, don't usually use plant medicine at all, don't even believe in whatever, don't even really know Rescue Remedy is like an energetic vibrational plant medicine, but it works. So people like it's always at checkout counters and this and that, no? Even in like CVS. So the Bach tradition and how they make their flower essence is described in great detail in that PDF. It's much more specific than the way I'm about to share with you. And that's why I gave you that resource so that you can just be aware that pretty much, I would say like 98% or more of the flower essence practitioners who are out and about in the herbalist community. I didn't mean that to be condescending. Oh God, that like, I'm not doing condescending bunny ears. They're literal bunny ears. Like anyone who's a flower essence practitioner in the Western lineage like that is going to be doing the Bach lineage. Like that's how they're going to be making it with brandy instead of the alcohols. I'm going to tell you, and like much more stringent. They're much more specific. They don't like, for example, incorporating sound. They think that you should meditate quietly. And I do, yes, he was a white man, but like his reasons for developing the flower essence lineage he did, the Bach lineage, is very noble. It was like to heal his sick wife. He dedicated his whole life to it and healed lots and lots of people. So that's why I did include it in this course, even though it's not my way as an herbalist. Um, so, but our way, the queen's way of the flower essence or flower bath making is you want to have a receptacle. Typically see-through is better, so glass. Okay, something I like to work with a lot is Pyrex. You can get Pyrex for discount. Sometimes I would even be going to Ross and getting like literally like the Tupperwares of Pyrex. There's many to them. By the way, you have like a little lid that you can keep it sterile, keep it fresh, keep it for the person. You can loan them out. Very affordable, very accessible. I frequently use Pyrex for my medicine making because then we can use it to heat up for our salves, our bombs, everything like that. Very affordable. Sometimes, and I'm just being real with you, like in plant diet and the Amazon, we're just making our flower baths in a plastic thing, sometimes half of a tire, like literally. So it's like what you have, but if you can have a glass container or like a nice ceramic, something that's see-through is ideal because the main way we're getting imprinting the water, which is the menstruum for this plant medicine. Okay, the menstruum is the material that's extracting the vibration or the physical properties of the plant. So, like in a tincture, the alcohol becomes a menstruum, and a nutritional vinegar, the vinegar, and the flower essence water, it's water. And so, what we're using to get the imprinting, because it's like, how do we imprint a vibration of a plant into a water, right? And the idea behind it and the science behind it is that we're using that light. And we talked about like everything is made of light and sound and literally, no, but like literally my mom and my dad have sex every morning and night. It's the earth and the sun, and like legit his rays penetrate her waters, and then they light up the whole sky with their orgasm morning and night, the secret to a healthy marriage. Every day. I'm like on a physical level, it works. Like the light comes through and makes stuff happen in water. It does. It made all of life happen on this planet, in fact. And so what we want to do is have a clear container so we can get as much of that light in the water as possible. We can work with sunlight and we can work with moonlight. when we're making our plant baths and essences. And a lot of the reproductive issues, so if we're presenting, our survivor clients are presenting with major struggles with fertility, having a regular cycle, menstrual cycle, or sperm cycle, like anything like that, like any sort of reproductive cycle, it's all very cyclical and revolves around the moon. Okay, a lot of sexual trauma happens at night disproportionately, and that's because more people are home at night, more people are drunk at night, more kids are left alone with people at night, more children are born at night, so like obstetric violence happens, just statistically it just happens more at night for all those reasons. Like when we had COVID and suddenly like domestic violence and sexual abuse went way up because people were just home more, they had more time to be on their substances, they had more time to like whatever, let the demons come through, I don't know. But it does statistically happen more at night. And so making flower essences and baths with the moon rays may be more appropriate for your clients largely than the sun rays. We don't know. You're just working with, it just depends on the plant and depends on the client, depends on the medicine that you're working with, depends on your traditions. Okay. But they're both an option. Some of the ones that I may make in moonlight might be like morning glory flower, tobacco flower, moonflower, certainly mimosa flower, and all of the flowers that bloom at night. Datura flower. I mean, the ones that bloom, again, like using your five senses to know the plants, no? Um, yeah, and so what we want to do is we want to have our sterile receptacle, preferably glass, but does not have to be. I've totally made a strong plant bath out of a half of a tire before, no problem, okay? You have your dish though, and what you want to do is delicately harvest the plant, fresh plant. So this is a distinction because so far we've talked about with all of our preparations being able to use fresh or dried herbs, doesn't matter. But with this one, we want to always use fresh. And we don't want to use very much, very much at all. And we want to make sure that our oils, that we don't have a strong fragrance on, that our oils are not mixing with the plant. And so you could use like gloves when you're harvesting to make an essence. You could use your nice bamboo knife. What I like to do to just keep it like real potent is like I might take a leaf of the same plant and like use that in my kind of pincers to harvest the same flower, to harvest the same plant. So it's just like plant on plant. And then however way we're harvesting, not letting our oils mix with the plant, delicately and gently placing the plant, whether we can make essences also not just out of flowers. So it could be like a sprig of redwood, a leaf of cedar. I don't know, but like we're placing whatever plant we're harvesting fresh on top of the water, just on top. Okay, when we start getting into our tinctures and vinegars here in a minute, we're gonna put in a lot more plant material because we want to maximize our physical properties from the plant, right? But in this case with the essences, it's not about maximizing the amount of plant, it's more the quality of each plant, specifically like a whole flower, a whole leaf. And we're going to gently place them on the water until they completely cover the surface. So that's how we measure it, completely cover the surface of the water. So everything has, every little leaf or every little flower, every little part of the plant kind of floats around and has its own space within the surface, but also it's covered. Then we're going to leave that receptacle out in the sunlight or the moon rays for at least 2 hours, at least 2 hours. And then if we're doing a flower essence, like a cold bath, like when we sent you the PDF, I think it was a blog post rather talking about the plant bath diet. Or no, I'm sorry, that's coming with this bonus material. It's going to prompt you to do your own flower bath, like plant bath diet, where you make yourself an energetic flower bath every day for, I think it's at least 4 days. You pick your time of day, you pick your plant. But if you're making a cold plant bath, there's your essence. You have your essence. You don't take the plants out or nothing. Done. You're done. All you do then is just pour it on you. That's it. Or pour it on the person. Or maybe you make it into a ritual where you cleanse your ceremonial tools. Or maybe you make it into a ritual ceremony where you cleanse the person's feet energetically. Like, may your path be beautiful. May your path be whole. Like, may your path be healed. I'm seeing the trauma healed like that. I've learned a lot to do it over the head, back, shoulders. And this is where I'm like super cheesy because if you's a healer player, go ahead and brush your aura off and just like you got to brush the shoulders off. Yeah. I mean, you see it again and again. Like you got to get the back and the shoulders and the head. But however, in your way, like you could have like a fancy cup, like sometimes just whole bucket. And the Amazon, like the maestras, the ayahuasqueras I've studied with, just like a plastic cup, like nothing fancy. It's really not, but it's still so strong. And very important above all else with our essences and flower baths to sing. And with our pusangas to sing to them. Okay. And chant and put whatever that those prayers in, those visualizations, whatever your way is like that. Okay. If we want to then take this plant bath that we've made, this energetic plant bath, and make it into an essence, we're just going to add we're going to strain out the plant material. And this is why it's still important to be working with as much sterile environment as we can, even if it's an energetic plant medicine. Strain out the plant, the fresh plants, and that liquid that is left is now your flower essence to take inside. You can take it just as is. You can just take it as is. You can add it to water. If you keep it in the refrigerator, it'll last about a week. Okay. But if you want it for longer term use, you can take it and add alcohol. This is where I differ from the Bach lineage greatly because he's like only use brandy, blah, 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 a certain amount. I say like about a third, just enough to sterilize it. And again, it depends on where you're working with. I don't care. It could be grain alcohol. I've sometimes used like cane alcohol because I'm like out in the cut of Peru and it's fine. And then you have your sterile flower essence for internal use that can be used usually up to a moon cycle. And like any herbal medicine, you want to store in a dry, cool place. Okay. We can then take this, the next step and moving towards tincture and away from essence is the pusanga, which is a very ancient kind of like it lives in between the world. This is why I use it to transition into the more physical plant medicine making. The pusangas live in between the worlds of like flower essence and tincture. It's like you get some of the physical properties, like very slightly, you're starting to get them extracted, but it's mostly a vibrational plant medicine. The pusanga is a medicine herbal preparation that's local to the Shipibo nations of Peru and perhaps like other indigenous nations down here I'm not aware of, but I know for sure the Shipibo nation is a very strong indigenous nation in Peru that was never colonized. The people just came here in the 1900s and they have very strong lineages of herbalism because of that, like unbroken, for thousands of years. And so how you make the pusanga is you have your bottle. It's important that you have a bottle. Maybe some of you have seen like agua florida or agua bendita or like the perfume waters that are used in ceremonies for cleansing. Those all used to be pusangas, right? And that flowery perfume smell used to be the actual smell of flowers and still is if you're working with like a real deal, in my opinion, maestro or maestra, or maybe they are a real deal like maestra, but it's just pusangas aren't their thing. Again, I know maestras who like their whole thing is pusangas. You can have hundreds of types of pusangas and mixtures, like for making the people fall in love with you, for good luck, for health, for whatever, like for opening your vision, for healing sexual trauma. Me, myself, as a practitioner, I try to steer away from like any love spells, anything like that. But I certainly am down with like the health, the protection, the opening one's own vision, the clarifying one's own memories, the invoking the ancestral healing, the clarity, the wholeness, the love, like that. Yes. And so a pusanga, how you make it is you have the bottle. I've always been taught you have to have your bottle for this one. Okay. And it usually I've made them with recycled bottles. So like an agua florida bottle, just that's empty. Or sometimes even I've bought like with the maestras in the Amazon, like the perfumed agua florida bottle, and you use that same alcohol to save money and just stuff the herbs in there. So, but like if you're starting from scratch, you have your bottle and you can use one of your bottles to make a pusanga if you want in your medicine making kit, any bottle. Like I've taught pusanga making classes with just like empty water bottles, tincture bottles, whatever. Like as long as it's sterile-ish, it's good. Because we're not going to use this for internal purposes or on our bodies. So it doesn't have to be like as sterile as the other ones. How you make them is you put the plants fresh or dried in the bottle. You can also, you stuff it full, as full as you can. You usually have to have like a stick. I'm used to having a stick because I'm used to working with like agua florida bottles. That's why, but depending on your receptacle, to make a busanga, you need the receptacle, the elements, the plants or medicine you're working with, alcohol of any kind, but like, grain alcohol proof type of alcohol, and water. That's it. And a stick, a poker. So you poke what you want in the bottle and you want to poke it completely full, but also leave enough space like a tincture so that all of the materials can get completely covered in liquid. And you're going to see that this is very important when we start talking about our oils, our vinegars, our salves, our tinctures. We don't want any pockets of air surrounding the plant. We want it completely covered with liquid. Okay, like even like no herbs poking out of the top with liquid because that's where mold can grow. Okay. With the pusangas, it's really cool. They can be fresh, they can be dried. It's a very energetic process. You can put, I've seen animal medicine in there, Lucky Charms, like legit Lucky Charms, like stone medicine, all sorts of elements because it's very energetic, no? And then you, after you have your medicine in there, you're going to fill with at least half alcohol, so at least half grain alcohol, and then the rest water. And when you do that, it's very important. You can use your pokey thing. And I like to tap when I'm making tinctures or anything like that. Like tap the bottle on the table so that like everything kind of settles and you can make sure there's no pockets of air or whatever. Okay. Very important with the pusanga specifically because it's traditional to the Shipibo Nation. You need to sing to your pusanga. You need to sing or chant or put, that's like a big deal. That's the song and this indigenous plant technology, the Icaro or song becomes the vehicle through which the plant spirits come to you in the Pusanga. Okay. So it's very important. It's like it's an ingredient. It's an important, as an important ingredient, your song or your prayer or your chant that you're putting in there as the plants or whatever else you're putting in there, if that makes sense. And the beautiful thing with pusangas is you can keep them with you throughout ceremonies. You can use them like this, just as is. Like, let it sit in a cool, dry place after you've completely covered with water for anywhere from 1 to 28 days. Again, totally depends where you are because in the Amazon, it's so hot that they almost cook. So it's like ready in a day or two, you know, but sometimes you might need to store in a cool, dry place for up to a moon cycle, taking care to use your five senses. Like, are you seeing the water change, making sure there's no mold or air pockets? If you see the water go down, just fill it back up with more alcohol, just top it off with more alcohol. And you can keep that same pusanga going once it's ready to use in ceremonies. Or like I've seen maestras in the Amazon like have the same pusanga bottle with some of the same old herbs for like years, and then they keep putting like new fresh herbs and new alcohol over it, and like more icaros and more chants, and it's just like more potent and more potent. You see how you work that way. Like there's all sorts of ways to work, but once you have the pusanga ready to go, you can use it like this to cleanse yourself. You can use it to cleanse your energetic tools. You can go like this, like when I do the like at the end of the songs, I could be having the pusanga in my mouth and like doing soplas. Um, you can put it in a spritzer bottle. I've used them a lot like this in the States, where then you have your energetic flower essence spritzer that's not going to go bad, ready to go preserved in the grocery line and wherever, driving downtown in your ceremony, whatever like that with your client can be very cathartic and empowering because it's something they can physically take with them from your session, you know, and you can put some of the same herbs in there and same medicines like that you're working with in their plant baths and their steams and everything like that. Yeah, so that's the humble pusanga. And I am just announcing now, I'm probably going to go about like 10 minutes over because it's funny. It's like I should take more time, right? But this isn't the grandmother way. I feel like in our doula trainings too, it's like so much more information goes into like the fertility and fertility treatments, the healing, the sexual trauma, the laying the groundwork. And then by the time we get to the pushing phase, like hopefully your advocating is good. You know what I mean? Like as we go down the line with our medicine making, like hopefully your understanding is just like more holistic like that. So let's move from a pusanga to a tincture. And this is going to apply right now. We're going to go over how do you make a medicinal vinegar, a medicinal tincture, a medicinal honey, a medicinal glycerin with herbs, okay? So a glycerin I would like to use when I'm working with a client who maybe has an aversion to alcohol. Maybe they're in recovery. Maybe it's just culturally taboo. Maybe they're a minor child. Maybe the taste is bad. Um, and you just get liquid glycerin to do that with. When we're talking about alcohol, we're going to be using a grain alcohol, you know, so like a high proof alcohol. When we're looking at a vinegar, I'm talking about like apple cider vinegar. You can use it in the same way. And that's going to be wonderful for making it like, is it an herb? Is it a food? I don't know, because we can just like have this medicinal herbal vinegar ready to go in our salad dressing in our fridge, and it's going in our soups. It's going on our salads. It's going to dip our stuff in. It's an ingredient in everything. So that's wonderful. Again, option for the whole family or for those herbalists who may be working like between the worlds like that. Um, what was the other one? I said honey. Honey's just wonderful because it's beautiful, it's lovely, it has all of the other nutrition in it that honey does. So you prepare all of these in the same way, and it's very similar to how you prepare pusangas. With all of the ones, all of the internal preparations, what these all have in common is that we're wanting to get the physical properties of the plant as a way to be absorbed inside. So we're talking about our nutritional herbs. For this course, it's mainly our nutritional herbs. Some of them are going to be the nerving herbs, the adaptogenic herbs we're talking about, the herbs we want to support the kidney, support the adrenal system. We can make the following preparations for all of those options, okay? It's very important because it's for internal use that we need to be more strict as we go along these types of plant medicines and get more and more specific. It becomes more and more important to like really stay on your sterile working environment, right? Because like we're now going inside people's bodies, okay, or our own bodies. So making sure that you have absolutely sterile environment to work with, as sterile as you can get. You're going to work with only dried herb. I do know that there's certain fresh herbs that you can do tinctures with, but for our purposes, just only dried herbs. Why? Because it's so much safer. Because when we're working with a whole plant, it has water in it. And again, that water mixed with the air, mixed with the honey can easily create like bacteria and molds. And we do not want to get with like an FDA lawsuit or like in any way do harm, to our community. So when in doubt, just only working with dried herbs, fully dried herbs for these following preparations is going to be safer like that. And what you want to do is fill the container you're working with. So like a bottle, usually like a brown bottle, like we sent you with the herb, same like a pusanga with a pokey thing. And you want the bottle, same like a pusanga, to be completely full, but not so full that you can't shake the liquid kind of to surround the herbs. Okay. And you need space so that, again, there's no herbal material floating over the menstruum. So no herbal material popping up above the surface of the vinegar, the alcohol, the glycerin, whatever your menstruum is, okay? And then, again, like with the pusanga, we want to shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it like a Polaroid picture. Make sure there's no bubbles. Make sure that there's no herbs poking above the surface, and you're good. And then you put the lid on and you store in cool, dry place for, I usually do a moon cycle for like a tincture, a vinegar, a honey, or a glycerin. Because again, we're really going for that punch, that potent properties of internal use. That's our purposes. So usually 28 days, but I have seen in the Amazon, again, where it's very hot, where we've made tinctures in just 7 days. And then I've seen other practitioners who a whole season, or even in the old ways where you bury a jar underground, like even taking it back thousands of years to like some of our medicinal honeys found still in tombs in Egypt. Okay. And you can really work with it that way. Like you could bury underground a tincture and make it like a whole seasonal, like sexual reproductive healing thing like that, like in the fall or to use in the winter or something like that. So it just depends on where you live. But my general rule of thumb is at least a moon cycle. Okay. And when you're going to admit it, then give out that herb to anyone, always checking to make sure nothing went wrong, that there was no herb poking out. You don't smell anything. It should smell nothing like alcohol and plant, like no mold, no nothing floating around the liquid. Okay. Or if you're working with vinegar, it should just smell like vinegar and plant. Usually it just smells like vinegar. And how can you tell when it's done? Again, using our five senses, like has the vinegar like will take the hue of the plant, like so will the alcohol, like so will the honey. That's how we know when it's done. Not that complicated. And then and then from the tincture, or sorry, then from the oh, what I didn't included in the same type of medicine making are the oils. The oils, okay? So I could use an alcohol, I could use a glycerin, I could use a vinegar, a honey, I could use a oil, like a good raw oil, nutritive oil, bioavailable. By the way, it's also from a plant. By the way, it's also giving healing restorative properties to the survivor. And I can use that instead in just the same exact way that we talked about using alcohol. The important thing with the oil is that you don't want it to, you want it to be virgin. You want it to be able to absorb and bind to the properties of the plant. Okay. But it could be like, yeah, sunflower, almond, anything that you could, olive, even though, yeah, it's a strong flavor, but anything like that, and keep it like, is it a food? Is it a plant? I don't know. You can just then take that oil and apply it all straight on your body, and you got a medicinal herbal body oil. There you go. like honey, like talking cinnamon, like talking all the anti-inflammatory herbs we've talked about, the scar tissue remediation, okay? It is an important step, and I forgot to mention this with any of these preparations. Once you do take it out of storage, after your moon cycle or your 7 days or whatever you're working with, you need to strain the herbs out. So this is different from the pusanga. The pusanga, because we're just working energetically, it's not as important that it's sterile. Like it still should be sterile so it doesn't get moldy, but we're not using it internally. We're not putting people in danger or really even putting it on the body. Um, it is important to strain the herbs out just to like keep the shelf life good with any of these preparations. Okay. It just lessens the chances that something could hit oxygen and go bad. Now, once we have our oil all strained out, our medicinal oil, from here, we can make our salves, our lip balms, our creams, our whipped butters, our body oil, our scar tissue remediation, our yoni massage oil, like whatever that is. Yeah. And so how do we take the oil and make it into a salve, a butter, a lip balm? Well, we just thicken it. We just slightly heat it up and thicken it just ever so slightly. And so for example, if I want to make like in my royal jelly baby balm mama postpartum butter that we make, our whipped shea butter that I make in our did make in our original instructions postpartum kits, I usually would infuse in oil and just the exact same way we talked about, storing it long term. uh Sorry, word to the wise, if you're in a rush and you want to make an oil quicker, and this doesn't apply to like tinctures or anything else, but if you want to make an oil quicker, you can also just slightly heat it for like anywhere from like 20 minutes to 2 hours, covered, right? So I can do this in like very slightly. You don't want it even to get to the point of simmering, because then the oil will no longer be virgin and it won't be able to kind of combine with the medicinal qualities of the plant or give the proper nutrition. So you want to make sure it's covered. You could do that with like a double boiler. I usually use just a Pyrex and a Pyrex, or like a sun oil, instead of a sun tea, same thing. Just wanted to say like that one you can play with more of the oils. Like if you're in a rush, you're trying to produce or something for a client quicker, you can do that. And once we have the medicinal oil, like for my belly bombs, what I do is I put like raw vanilla bean in the oil. And for our belly bombs, that's why I thought of that. I usually do just heat it up. Like sometimes I'll do the 28 days, but like usually I'm producing. So I'll heat the oil up in the moment. I'll put like raw vanilla bean, copaiba drops in it, aguaje drops, comfrey, yarrow, like whatever. I'm wearing calendula. And then I have my medicinal oil. I strain out any of the herbs that I was working with, and then I just add a thickener. In my case, the thickener is usually shea butter and mango butter because it's beautiful when you whip it. And then I whip it and it's done. Um, you can also use as a thickener beeswax. You can use soy wax. I don't recommend soy wax. We talked about the phytoestrogens in the soy, but you can. You can use, in a more ancient way of doing that, like the old school balm is just straight animal lard, like bear fat, like buffalo fat, like in the Waitasca tradition in the Quechua Nation, when they do the womb massage, it's like goat fat and snake fat, like, and then depending on the animal fat you're using, it has its energetic properties as well as nutritional properties. That does not apply to a lot of us culturally right now, but I'm just telling you that's where like the old salve came from. It's just like herbs and fat, you know. Um, and then that's good. That's good. But yeah, so for our more modern practitioners, it's like you can thicken it with mango butter, shea butter, cacao is a wonderful option, depending on where you live. You know what I mean? Because it's like if you're at high altitude and the temperatures are lower, you could even use coconut. You could just infuse coconut oil as your oil and then let it harden, and there you go. That's your salve. Like, but if you wanted to stay room temperature better, like beeswax, shea, mango butter, those are some of my favorite ones. And there's lots of recipes. Like I'm going to give you a sampling of herbal recipes that are very much more measured. But again, it really depends on where you live, what the temperature is, what time of year it is. And so what I like to do is just like heat the oil that has all of the medicinal properties. It's the menstruum. You've already infused it with the qualities of the plant. And then just shave, you slightly heat it up just to the point where wax can melt, not higher. It shouldn't be bubbling. Okay, slightly heat it up, well covered, and then just gently shave in and mix and let it cool and just play with your environment. Just play, less is more when talking about a thickener, less is more. And if you do less thick, then it's a body oil. If you do less thick and then whip it for certain butters, then it becomes a whipped body butter. Like we know, if you do more, thicken it more, like carve more beeswax or more soy or more mango butter, then it becomes like a salve, that you would get like the Badger salve, like first cuts and scrapes. If you put even more thickener, it becomes a lip balm like that. By the way, if you want to make it super nice, I recommend putting edible mica sparkles. They're not very, they're not over harvested and they're accessible and affordable. And it's just lovely, lovely to put in the body butters and stuff. Yeah. So that's how you make the balms, the butters, the lip. And then you pour into your receptacle. Like once I've added my thickener to liking, then you put it in your sterile jars. You put it in your sterile, like you can buy the empty lip balm containers, like you put it in whatever. It's not, again, it's very interesting, like how easy and accessible it can be. To what Larissa was saying during our together breakout room. Yeah, I mean, I really respect my herbalist colleagues. And yeah, and I've been studying for decades also in my whole life, like formally studying for 2 decades now. And also, I do feel that um, we're all just like herbalists on a certain level as humans. I feel that the herbalism we're teaching you now is just human, like human herbs. Like I'm just a human and I live on earth. That's it. Like this isn't super clinical herbalism. I'm trying to think. So I think that's it. I think that's it. Yeah, we did the energetic plant baths, we did the bombs, the spritzers, all this stuff. And I'm gonna take questions. I want to close up circle and I'll repeat just for anyone who wasn't here. So sorry about the mix up today for the link. If you were unable to attend the class live due to that, like, of course, your attendance is not going to be missed for this class. I'll be facilitating discussion group this week. And it's time for us to talk about during discussion group, like any sort of how this information about herbs is hitting us, any sort of hiccups with our medicine making kits, any sort of herbal questions surrounding specifically like the herbal curriculum. And I'm fine to stay on the discussion group like as long as we want on Wednesday. So it's like an open forum for that while still respecting people's time. I'm going to be following up with a lot of extra bonus material for this class, like videos of people actually preparing the tinctures and actually preparing and like pouring and straining, just for those of us who are more visual. Because no, I did not have the tech support on lockdown this class. So we're going to reinforce with that way. Um, yeah, and thank you for the class. I am gonna sing the song real fast, just for those of us who want to go, because we're already 7 minutes over. And then I'm gonna stay on for anyone who wants to stay on and keep recording, so that other students who are in the self-paced or weren't able to make it can hear the responses. Okay, so thank you, Holy Song and Lakota Nation, for the song. Thank you all for your presence and patience today as well. Wanka tanka hawa te Wanka tanka hawa te Wanka tanka hawa te ayo ayo Wanka tanka unche malaya Wayo kie Wayo kie wanka tanka ho anite ayo ayo wanka tanka ho wanite wanka tanka ho wanite wanite wanka tanka ho wanite ayo ayo wanka tanka onche malaya wayo kie Wayo kie wakatanka wanite ayo ayo wakatanka ha wanite wakatanka ho wanite wanite wakatanka ho wanite ayo ayo Wangkatangka onchai malaya Weyokie Weyokie Wangkatangka ho aniteye Heyo hey Thank you. So that was should be 4 or 7 rounds. And again, gonna repeat that that was just like a special one that Spirit brought through today, for your own healing, more personal times, not for like charging classes or I don't know, just a little more private than the rest of our songs in this group. Yay. And we did do 7 times. We did 4. We got sandwiched in between. I like to do sandwiching with my rounds. That's a technique, like the weaving. I like to weave us into the actual song. So like 4 rounds before, 7 after. Okay. So let's do questions now. How about I'm trying to find where we stopped. Okay, I'm going to start with KS. For how long? Okay, so for the plant based, yeah, I think we said as long as the client wants or, but physiologically for 5 to 15 minutes or until the steam stops. Would a plant bath and a bottom steam, if you use the same herbs, do the same thing for the anus and yoni? Yes, ma'am. Correct. Correct. And I love doing that where like even as a midwife, when I was practicing more as a midwife, like all straight have like the same big pot of herbs is going to be like the sitz bath. It's going to be the peri bottle. It's going to then be the pad popsicle, by the way. Okay. I'm just adding a couple of herbs like witch hazel into them. Then also might be like spritzer, might be energetic cleanser, like from the same pot might be like put a cupful of it into the broth, depending on the herbs. And so I love to work like that. I would love to do like, for example, like a hot bath maybe with you to get like, I will say that with the hot bath versus the steam, they're going to physically absorb more of the physical qualities, right? Because like we're sitting in it for longer, our pores are more open, it's touching more parts of our body. Like it can actually touch the kidneys, touch the bladder, you know what I'm saying? Like a hot sitz bath or bath, touch the urethra, like physically go up in there. Whereas a steam, we are still getting the physical qualities because the bottom is so absorbent like that. Um, but not as many, more the ones that are coming out of the steam. And I would say like working in combination, no, like maybe they do the like hot bath with you. By the way, they're also sipping on some of the same herbs in a tea. No, maybe then by the way, they're taking home an essence for doing their own baths at home, or maybe we're putting it into sachets so that they can like do their own bottom steam. For certain people who have certain trauma, a bath may be all too much. You know what I mean? I really do like the bottom steams as far as like very non-invasive, very self-guided. Oh, I forgot to say this during class, but like so part of the thing with the bottom steaming and survivors is like it's so cathartic to throw it out the fucking door. Okay. I'm like, now that we're not technically in class, I'm bringing out the F-bombs, people. Because like that feeling of, and I still have it. Like, I don't know if it's ever going to go away as a survivor. And I've been on this healing path a really long time, but a common feeling can be like wanting to get it out. Like I'm dirty inside, or also if it like just happened, like even reproductive trauma, it doesn't matter. Like a freaking wellness exam gone wrong, man. I've come home from those totally just as frazzled, if not more than some, cause it's like, you think you're safe. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you're trying, sometimes they're getting trauma addressed and then they're just like raping you more. And so I don't know, like being really like non-invasive like that and like wanting to the survivor themselves, something I love about the steam is like you can like energetically feel what's coming out. Like you can feel the steam coming up. It's not very invasive, but then you can also just take the whole pot, have the client or survivor take the whole pot of herbs and throw it out the fucking door. Like I'm done. My back is turning. I'm not looking back. And just like that physical action and repeating it like every time, like out the back door or in the trash or in the toilet or whatever kind of feels cathartic and appropriate for them. But it can become like a very somatic practice in that way that can put kind of power back into the survivor's hands of like, it can feel very powerless. Like I can't get their body fluids out of me, like, or they gave me a sickness I can't get, or like all sorts of feelings like that, like up inside you in places you can't touch. That is just like, and so like that, like just throwing it out. And you've seen that like for time immemorial, like throw it out the lodge, turn your back. We're not even looking. Like there is no confusion. Those sweat lodge rocks are broken. We are not using them again. We're not trying to glue it back. Nothing done by. Yeah. Sorry. I'm just a little more spicy than in class sometimes. So, okay. Tech support. I hope that answered that question. Erica has a question about potentially converting measurements of fresh and dried herbal allies. Great question, Erica. And thanks for letting us know, like we're re-recording. We did not record our breakout rooms. I'm not great at the tech, so thank you for the reminder, but I did remember your privacy. Yes. So in general, And again, some of the resources in your follow-up are going to be from herbalists that are a lot more measured. And like, yes, if we have like 5 ounces of fresh herbs, that equates to like 3 ounces of dried. But in general, like I measure stuff the same. Like a lot of times the same. I just use my 5 senses. Like I'll just like if I'm making a sitz bath, I'll just use like 2 or 3 handfuls of the herb until I feel complete with it, if it's dried or fresh. Like now that when we get to like the vinegars, the tinctures, the capsules. Oh, we didn't talk about capsules. No, we didn't talk about capsules. Okay, I'll have to do that in your final little herb class. But when we're talking about internal use, so like teas, capsules, herb or tinctures, vinegars, it's more important to be measured. And so in general, and this is just a general measurement, and you'll get a lot of other sample measurements depending on different herbalist views. In general, to every 4 ounces of menstruum, so whether that's tea, whether that menstruum is vinegar, tincture, oil, whatever, in general, we want about an ounce of herb. 2 ounces an ounce in general, if it's dried. If it's fresh though, I don't usually work with the fresh herbs for internal consumption that much unless it's in stew and tea. And then and then, yeah, I don't measure it. It's just like to taste at that point, because then we're working with herbs that are also foods that are also whatever, especially in regards to this course. Okay. Because we are largely, our repertoire coming out of this course is nutritional, is tonifying, is adaptogenic. It's not, we're not working with like emmenagogues. We're not working with like purgatives. We're not working with like herbs that are going to make you throw up or like have an abortion or anything like that. Or cure your cancer or whatever. Not saying, maybe it will. I don't want to close the door to that. I don't want to close it. I believe in the power even of like rosemary, like Kias was saying. Yeah, so I hope that answers that question. In general, when we're doing the dried herbs for internal consumption, about an ounce and a half to 2 ounces per 4 ounces of menstruum, about. But also it's just very much eyeballing. And as far as like then converting fresh to dried, yeah, I don't really. I don't know because it just depends. It just depends. Again, like how potent is that plant? What time of the year is it? Like like all of these things. All of these things. Questions. Thank you for all the shares. Love the plants. Larissa, you're making beaded earrings. You're fucking awesome. You're made beaded mushrooms. Would jars work too? Okay, Chaos, what are we talking about with jars? Like for tinctures or pusangas?
With the that was during the Pusanga.
Totally. You can use anything for the pusanga. I've totally made great pusangas in jars and just like old water bottles and whatever you have. I've mostly made them in the old agua florida bottles, but that's just because I mostly have made them on the Amazon. And that's how they do it here. But yeah, any sterile receptacle or semi-sterile would work. If we don't have, and this is questions from you too. Oh, the next like 3 questions. Okay. If we don't have any indigenous songs, can we just hum or sing? Totally. Hum or sing any song you already know. Also, if it resonates more for you, like you're at that place in your journey with your voice where, um, where being silent and letting like the spirit of the plant come through, like in the Bach lineage, totally fine. I'm just sharing with you in regards to Pusangas that it's very integral to the Shipivo tradition, which I've learned from, extremely integral. And yes, I would say that with us foreigners, we speak, I still am going to cover like 2 English songs during this class, and I still have to do our European ones. I just went back to what I know today because I was feeling super anxious. um, but like I will say in the Shipivo culture, which I've been so blessed to diet in for like quite a lot, like long diets, 6 months, 8 months, like long time sitting with people and largely being like the whitest person there, which is not a badge of honor, but I do think that it afforded me some opportunity to look at how it was different, like sitting with them and their families versus like when I would host groups down here, and how like even the ceremony format changed. But my experience has always been with like interchanging culture with the Shipibo Nation, that they're very open to interchanging culture, very open to their medicine surviving, and very into like you just singing. Like the main thing that you're going to hear at a Shipibo ayahuasca ceremony or any plant bath or anywhere is just canta, canta, canta. They don't care if it sounds pretty. They don't care if you think it sounds ugly. They don't care if it's in German, English, black, white, candy, stripe, because in their tradition, you learn about the plants through singing. It's so integral. You can't actually separate it. I see that that's where a lot of the Western mind is like separated in the ayahuasca ceremonies down here. It's like I don't know, like you almost like can't have the full ceremony without the good Ikaro. Yeah, like just as much as like the Ikaro or the medicine song is as important to the Pusanga as the plant is, the Ikaros and medicine songs and you singing as the participant as well. And this is what's I think different in a lot of the more westernized ceremonies where someone's more singing to you the whole time. And a traditional Shipibo ceremony, we can be all singing at the same time. No problem. No problem. I've also seen that in Huichol traditional ceremony. No problem. The whole family's chanting along together. There may be that one or two maestros or maestras open the space with the major big hitting protective songs, but then it's like we're all at some point singing along with it. And yes, please like invite any sounds, and explore, right? And explore. And then if you feel apprehensive, like, is this negative vibrations? Like, I don't want to get just like my cleansing or my whatever kind of process into like medicine for someone else, then we can maybe employ songs that are that we know better or something that are less intuitive for those times until we're clear. You know what I mean? Can a busanga be made with glycerin? It certainly can. I've never seen it done. I do feel that the alcohol, and I've learned that the alcohol is an integral part of cutting the energy. Like in the same way that metal does, alcohol does that too. And that's why, like, when we're feeling altitude sickness, when people are fainting, bring them back to this world. Richari, why, hey, wake up, we're here. Like this. That one meme, what is that reel where from the res dogs where she like wakes up and she's like, thought you were fucking hardcore, like get up, let's do this. Like that's the alcohol vibe, in the Pusanga. It's like very much grounding and very much like calling us back to this planet. Also, like for moms who are in labor, they use a lot like that. And so I do feel like it's an integral part of the preparation, although yeah, you could experiment, Um, I see a hand up. If it's okay, Erica, or do you have something to say? Okay. I'm going to do just these last couple of questions and then any hands, and then we can close. Thank you for your extra time. This is just bonus love and reciprocal love for your patience. Shelf life of each medium, glycerin, alcohol, apple cider, vinegar. Beautiful, Larissa. Totally depends on where you at. We do want to store them in a dry, cool space. The more or less answer to that is like alcohol for herbs, about a year. We want to also make sure our herbal medicines are fresh and potent, okay? Especially because all of the ones that Larissa is referencing there is for internal use, and so we want to get that really potent. I see people like still selling tinctures that are years old. Not so much. We don't always want that. About a year, I mean, we could still use it. It's just going to start going down season by season after a certain point. Like it peaks usually at about like a couple seasons, and then we'll start depleting over time, with the glycerin about the same, about a year. The vinegar less, about a season, because it's hopefully you're working with like apple cider vinegar that's like a living agent. There's a more organic, and with the apple cider vinegar alone, you want to keep it in the fridge. I think I did mention that. You want to keep it in the fridge. The honey also about a year, the oil about a year, and or until you smell it turning rancid, the oil itself, because different oils are so sensitive, like the rancidity. I mean, I feel so, since I got turned on to rancid oil, I didn't even have time for this tangent, but like, oh my God, like I started doing the food combining stuff with my first boyfriend when I was like 14, 15, and he turned me on to like the rancid oil idea that like most of the oils that we buy, even the like super dank organic ones in the store or whatever, or that people are cooking with, are all rancid. Like most oils, like raw oil shelf life varies anywhere from like a couple weeks to like a season. That's it. It's not much. And people be cooking all the time. Like you'd be paying like $200 for a meal that was straight rancid. so, and you can smell it. Like since I'm a very like smeller person, it's like not good. I'll be the one who's like, who has like I can smell cancer. Like if it's advanced, I can smell the body like attacking itself. It's in people's pee. I don't like people that much because of the, like a lot of people. I do get anxiety in groups because it's like a lot of sensory overload. I love people. I just don't like them, even myself, that much. Like it's so many smells. And 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 yeah, so you really got to smell with your smeller with the oils. That's the answer for the oils. It's all going to depend. Like if I'm working with, let me think, like olive oil actually has a more shorter shelf life. Like sunflower oil has a longer shelf life, almond oil longer, safflower longer, grapeseed longer. Yeah. And then they all have their like levels where they'll go rancid if you heat them too much too. So it's like the oil thing is like you could also be just like only a practitioner with oils because they're so medicinal. They're like plants too, you know, they are plants. So hope that answered that question. Can use fat, beef tallow. That's what's up. That's ancient way. We love that. And by the way, you're getting the bioavailable, like all of the fatty collagens and everything that's good, just like in a stew. And the spiritual properties, if that's culturally relevant, you know. Could you repeat, Cami asked, could you repeat how much liquid to add into a tincture after you dry that? Yes, ma'am. So the amount of liquid you want to add to a tincture, whatever that is, yeah. So if it's like a glycerin or a tincture, is enough to completely cover the herbs so that there's like plenty of room so that you're not, there's no herb bottles, there's no, I'm sorry, air pockets. And remember, we want to like kind of succuss it like a homeopathic remedy, shake it like a Polaroid picture. Okay. Um, like, can you tell I'm from the South? Can you tell I love dirty hip hop? I'm just wondering. Um, um, so yeah, you just want to add enough menstruum or liquid so that it's completely covering it. And if you notice, because sometimes like super dry herbs, depending on if they're leafy, like with a pusanga, they'll absorb some of the liquid and the liquid level will drop down. So that's why every day, you know, if you store it in a cool, dry place, it's good to go check how's my tinctures doing, maybe give it a little like a little shake and then maybe top it off, you know, like that. Mm-hmm. KS, good sources for non-rancid oils. Where's the best place for? Okay, where can I get snake fat? I know, right? That's a great question. I will look up some ethical resources of animal fats and drop them in your bonus material. I'm gonna actually type that to myself so I don't forget right now. Good sources, gosh, I don't know in the States, like I do have more for the animal fats. The animal fats have a much longer shelf life, which is interesting, you know? And so usually if like they're ethical, right, not culturally appropriate, organic, like biodynamic, who knows, organic, like whatever, that's usually the way to go, honestly. Um, you know, but yeah, I don't know. Once I got turned on to that smell, that's why I did that weird smell tangent. Cause like I kid you not, like I feel like I can't eat even at like a 5-star restaurant now. Like I'm like straight up, like you just fed me MSG and rancid oil. And I'm not trying to make that food classes. That's just like, can you smell? I know it's hard for restaurant owners because like they order big stocks and they have to have big stocks and then the oils go rancid and they don't want to lose money, but come on, come on. Yes. Okay. I think we're done with the questions and Erica has her hand up and anyone else who would like to go after her.
Hi, I just had a quick question about that came up as we were talking about our songs, like singing to the medicines as we're making and everything. Like, is there, because I don't have any songs that have been gifted or came to me, but I like humming, I love singing, and I'm using my voice as frequency. But is there anything culturally appropriated that I should be aware of when I am singing to my medicines?
Yeah, that's a great question. So specifically like with the pusangas, it's where we're like sing, sing, sing. To me, I do love that about the Shipibo Nation. I agree. I mean, we started the series with that. A good medicine song, they just can't take that away from you, babe, you know? They just can't kill it out of you. I mean, it's too brilliant. It's too brilliant. And inside those medicine songs, we can have any amount of recipes we want, any amount of secret knowledge we want, or not secret knowledge, just like basic human knowledge that's been taken. And so I think that that's really powerful. And as far as like culturally appropriating, I would say that in this course, I've tried to be an example of providing, other than the one song today, like songs that I know for sure like are used just at general powwows, just like at general like giveaway ceremonies, like healing, like for the people. Even we're gonna do like the Silky song from the Song of the Sea from the Gaelic culture, like songs that like have become medicine songs for people. And so just being mindful of that, like if and when you are gifted a song from a culture or lineage that you're not adopted into, being mindful of like when to use it, you know what I mean? Um, but then other than that, I truly don't feel as a practitioner that you exploring your own toning and your own medicine journey. And I do remember that about your introduction. I think that you feel, or maybe it was in our song class, that you in medicine ceremonies kind of experience your own medicine songs coming through. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
That's the
sometimes I even feel like very tribal as music, whether it's like using my breath or like native sounds. Like I just like for indigenous sounds. Like I just don't have anything that was given to me, but I know how I feel in the process or in the journey. So if I could take that and put that into the medicine work without feeling like I'm disrespecting or anything.
To me, in my opinion, and I can't speak for entire nations, and no can any one member of their nation, sadly, but to me, that's exactly the productive opposite of cultural appropriation. To me, that's exactly what we're going for, in my opinion, while walking respectfully and giving, and that's why we know, like, who did we learn about the Pusangas from? Well, Brittany learned it from from the Shipibo Nation. Like, that's why we do stuff like that. But within that context, when we're already doing it, which we all are, yeah, that's what we're going for, is receiving those songs. I mean, in my humble opinion, that's what will make your Pusanga different than Samantha's, than Cammy's, than Shanti's, than mine. And that's why your clients come to you. And that's how we actually receive new songs. Like, sure, I shared with you one cedar smoke song. There are infinite songs, who knows, for every plant, no? And it's like, I can't necessarily receive the same songs that you can. And yeah, if they're genuinely coming out of your soul, the only thing I would differentiate with that, like we said in our singing class, was that, like, sometimes I have seen it where people are in the reality that they're like becoming shamans, and then they, like, in my opinion, as an observer, it was much more like painful sounds coming out and maybe even trauma release. And maybe they got a little ahead of themselves and their reality that they were like ascending with I don't know what reality, or that the maestro chose them. And then I've seen them like going and kind of like, instead of singing medicine and having spirits come out, like just vomiting energy on people maybe before. And so just again, like checking in with yourself and your body, like with the somatic practice, for example, that Christine taught us, like, what am I feeling moving through, and just checking in to make sure that you're feeling benevolence and you're feeling whole and these sounds are feeling whole. And that's, I think, good there. Yeah, I hope that answered. Thank you for sharing. Okay, Samantha, and then we have KS. And then I think if there's no one else, we will close then. Actually close.
Okay. Over my hand. So for the flower essence, I have my grandpa who has passed, his rose bush that was like his prized possession. And I've always wanted to use some of the petals from that rose. But I don't know like the exact species. So I guess my question is, like, does it matter like the species of rose? Like when you're doing like using that plant?
I'm sorry, my camera, I didn't catch that. Does it matter what part of the rose? Can you
Like
repeat
what
that?
kind of rose? Because I don't know the species that it is. I just know that it's a rose bush.
For internal use, I mean, like, are you talking about like domesticated rose versus like wild rose or
Yeah, I
primrose?
guess it's probably I'm sure he bought it. I'm sure it's a domesticated rose, but more for like a spray or something, or or ingesting too. Like, what would you recommend?
You
Like,
can use, I like wild roses because I'm just wild, like I'm just a savage like that. And I like the idea, like we talked about, that plant nations that are growing like in less cultivated areas, so like not a flower farm, are going to be pulling up more medicinal qualities and probably more potent. So if you're using it for internal use, probably like wild rose. But for energetic purposes, or making like a rose water or a plant bath, or even if, yeah, any rose petal will work for teas. It's just, I would say, without even testing them, that probably the more wildly grown ones are more potent as a nervine and antidepressant. But certainly is the one thing to make sure of, is you're just like straight getting like roses, like commercial roses, is if you're using it for internal medicine, you really want to make sure they weren't like super sprayed with like colorings or pesticides or soaked in anything weird. Cause sometimes like in florist shops, they'll put like poisons in the water and then like put them in the water so the roses stay good longer and stuff. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, but as long as they're not like pesticided up or poisoned up, you could totally just, yeah. I mean, when I'm down here and go to the mercado, like when I make rose pusangas with the maestras in the Amazon, we just go to the mercado and buy long stem roses.
Yeah, no, it's the rose bush I have. I
Oh,
just
great. Oh my God, great. No, I mean, for me personally, the Rose Nation, and this is super cheesy, I don't frequently share it, but like the first song that I ever received from a plant nation was The Rose. And it was when I was like 10 years old living in Portland, Oregon, and just like totally ornamental roses. I just felt called to like go out in the morning at sunrise and like like, I don't know, like take the dead petals and put them around the base and kind of like do my like intuitive thing with my bare hands with it. And then like slowly over the mornings, like songs kept coming in and coming in, like a sunrise song. And no, I found like really big healing just with like ornamental roses. I mean, there's a reason why humans love them so much too, I think, you know? Yeah, yeah. Okay, and Miss KS, can you wrap us up here?
Yes, no, not yet. Just wait a minute. I was asking in the chat, but I don't know if you answered it. About like when you made the tincture with the plant and then you want to thicken it, how do you actually you're like melting it, right? You have to like heat it. How do you
The
is it
oil,
on the
when you made the
stove?
oil, how do you thicken it?
Like if you made, yeah, you made the oil, but then you thickened it, do you have to heat it on the stove while you're mixing it?
Great question, great question. And so, yeah, we did talk about heating it, and I'm sorry that I did not specify like the elements of heat. I was just trying to rush through. Um, um, it depends. It depends. It depends where you are. So I've been able to make salves before, like straight, just like, okay, on my coffee farm, it's just like it's so hot in the summer and there's this like stone slab where we dry the coffee beans. And I've literally like made entire cacao bars just setting the cacao beans on that because they melt and coagulate together and then take it into the shade. So I have been able to make like medicinal oils like that before. Um, but in general, and then you don't have to apply heat, right? We talked about just soaking it for 28 days and then straining. But if you are going to apply heat, like if I'm like making a postpartum kit or whatever, it's winter. Um, um, yeah, you can use fire, you can use like a crock pot, a double boiler, like a plug-in thing is much more controlled, you know? Just because of my nature, I usually just whatever I have, a fire, a stove, but it is not the most measured. A crock pot or a plug-in thing where you can like very carefully monitor the temperature is going to be like the best way. And you just want to heat it up enough. I do remember we went over this part, just enough, not so much that you're seeing bubbles, but right before that point just enough so that the wax or the thickener is melting. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I wanted to ask, thank you. I wanted to ask also if you have a place for the, you mentioned a bunch of recipes for different pusangas to do different things. Do you have a resource for recipes?
Oh, I don't think if I did, I didn't mean, I'm sorry if that was a misunderstanding. I'm going to include resources for medicinal foods and your resources. I'm going to include recipes from other herbalists, but I don't know other herbalists that have pusanga recipes written out. I know other herbalists that have recipes for like tinctures, salves. That's what I'm going to give you, like food recipes. Like some of them are taken from my postpartum stuff, like the first 40 days, like not that it's my most favorite book, but like Hygeia, just like so that you can see how other more clinical herbalists are like 2 ounces of oat straw, 2 ounces of fennel, 2 ounces of this, 4 ounces of alcohol. But I don't actually have, no, the only herbalist that I personally know of who work with pusangas, most of them can't even read or write. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry if I misrepresented that. I will give you as many recipes as I can and the bonus materials just so you can get like a smattering. Because I did give a couple of, I think in your practicum, I give a couple of my own, like to prompt you to make your own medicines, but mine are very much more general. It's literally like a pinch of this, a handful of that, you know? But yeah, I don't know other people who have pusanga recipes written out. Yeah.
you.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I will see you on Wednesday. We will get the tech stuff sorted out. So just use the same link, the normal link for Wednesday, and I will see you there. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.